Good morning and welcome at Triennale. We are happy and also excited today about resuming our activity at Triennale Milano following these difficult months, during which, however, we wanted to be present at all costs, and for which I thank the Board of Directors of Triennale, um, with Miss Elena Vasco representing it here. And as a consequence, we kept the garden open, the museum open, and all the Triennale activities, our exhibitions, our reflections on architecture and design. And we've also brought performance art, theatre, and visual arts to Triennale. But now is a very special moment. We are inaugurating two very important exhibitions, and I would like to ask Minister Dario Franceschini, who is in Rome for a very important um, voting session and who is connected remotely, to greet us on the occasion of the opening of Triennale. Can you hear us, Mr. Franceschini? Good morning. Unfortunately, I have to vote. It's an absolute majority vote on the recovery fund, so I could not attend in person because it's a very important day from a symbolical perspective too, because we are still going through a difficult patch regarding the pandemic and the figures of the pandemic, but it's important to prove to people that if we use all safety measures and if we comply with them in a responsible way, life can go on. Of course, it will be different and there will be many limitations, but it can still go on. And it is important for culture to demonstrate that we can go on by keeping exhibitions, theatres and cinemas open, although there are very strict safety measures that have been implemented and must be maintained. But this is key. And when the lockdown occurred, the decision was made to continue online and to move as many activities as possible outside in gardens and parks. It's important to keep culture and exhibitions alive. It's important also because Triennale is about to start its cooperation with Fondation Cartier, which demonstrates its European vision. It's important for countries to continue cooperating because we know that this is the dimension for the future. I recall the silly polemic that arose when the Leonardo exhibition took place at Louvre. Nobody understood that it was a European exhibition, and indeed, on the following year, there was a beautiful exhibition on Raffaello paintings at Quirinale. We should be aware that everything is done with a European perspective. And if we can work according to this European perspective, we will not rank second from any other country in the world, because Europe is the most important producer of cultural content and also the most important consumer of cultural content, with very important figures. So I greatly appreciate the collaboration between Triennale and Fondation Cartier because it goes in this direction. Um, as far as I'm concerned, the ministry I chair will provide as much support as possible to help overcome the emergency, and will also provide support to the initiative that is going on with a view to opening the National Museum of Photography, a beautiful archive, so that finally in Italy we will have a National Museum of Photography. So I wish you all for good proceedings. Goodbye, Stefano, and we will continue working together. Thank you, Minister Franceschini. Now, I would like to ask the Italian French Ambassador Christian Massé to come up to the podium. Today is important because we are inaugurating a partnership that has a completely new dimension. Two institutions that have different nationalities and a different legal framework have decided to cooperate together, not just towards an event, but or for a season, but for the next 8 years. So the floor to you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my dear friend Boeri. First of all, I would like to greet Minister Franceschini and the Councillor for International Relations, who is present here. I thank the Triennale Chairman, Mr. Boeri, and all the authorities.
I'm very happy to be here. This is a very important moment because we've visited these two exhibitions that are very complete.
These two exhibitions are characterized by a unique personality, as it were, and they have resulted from the experience of unique artists who have uh, walked very important personal paths. This exhibition itself is an event, but this moment is all the more precious considering the conditions we are living in. It is an extraordinary opportunity because, as Mr. Boeri rightly said, this moment is the start of an alliance between Triennale Milano and Fondazione Cartier. It is a completely unique partnership and a completely new one because it's an alliance between a private entity, Fondazione Cartier, and a public entity, Triennale Milan. This partnership is going to last for 8 years. It's a long-term one, and it is important that this partnership has occurred right now during the pandemic. Indeed, the pandemic is helping us to reflect upon time and to take time and to embrace a longer term vision. And this is what Triennale and Fondazione Cartier are doing, and they've been the first to do so. They both share something, and this is why they have stricken an alliance, which is based on multidisciplinarity. And this exhibition is actually a reflection of this multidisciplinarity. Moreover, I would like to remind you of the commitment of art. It has been overlooked in a way, but it has been demonstrated that it is necessary to join contemporary art and the big causes of today and tomorrow, one of them being the protection of nature and ecosystems. And you do this in an exceptional way. Which is demonstrated by the exhibition on Claudia Angiujar, who is an activist for the common good of humanity. There are a lot of lessons we can take from this, because indeed Claudia Angiujar's exhibition shows very well that this is a hymn to diversity, whether it's biodiversity or cultural diversity. And we know that we do need this diversity to live. The second message has already been shared by Minister Franceschini, and it is focused on Europe. Indeed, these two institutions Our two institutions are located in two great capitals of Europe, Milan and Paris. And this proves that there is a European-specific message to be launched regarding diversity. So thank you very much for this cooperation. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Now I would like to ask Alan Christian Rizzi to take the floor. Thank you, Stefano. I would like to greet you on behalf of the chairman. The interpreters apologize, but due to a technical inconvenience, we cannot translate what Mr. Rizzi is saying. This inconvenience will be solved in a few seconds, so we ask you to bear with this inconvenience.
Above all, as the Minister for Cultural Affairs has just said, having a shared pathway involving all private and public European institutions is the right way, the right direction to go. Only in this way can we overcome this economic crisis as soon as possible. We should also share our experiences about coronavirus. These are all experiences that we had some days ago. We participated in the meeting of Four Engines for Europe together with Spain, France and Germany. These are initiatives that are crucial. Sharing our experiences, having the possibility of transferring the necessary experience that we can have. This is something that is absolutely key, especially because the cultural industry has been affected the most. And this is just important for the future. So this is an investment we strongly believe in. By way of conclusion, and I'm addressing to you, Stefano, and to all the attendees, our region, the Lombardy region, will always be side by side with the Triennale and Cartier foundations. Everything that we can do in order to promote this sector, everything that we can do in order to share experiences as much as possible will be something that we support. Thank you. Thank you, and I would like now to invite here Filippo del Corno, uh, um, the cultural person who's responsible for culture at the municipality of Milan. Thank you, President Borreri. I would like to welcome you on behalf of Mayor Sala and the whole municipal council. This is a very important moment because exhibitions at Triennale just continue. The initiatives that we try to carry out during summer, and culture is a key element in a city like Milan. You're opening with two great exhibitions, and this is very important.
So I would like to greet you, to greet the Fondation Cartier and congratulate with them for the very important cooperation we've had with them. And I'd like to highlight the fact that this cooperation is leading to an exhibition and cultural project which introduces the topic of cultural responsibility of institutions in dealing with the issues of the planet today, namely the survival of the planet and the importance of the various different forms of life and biodiversity and nature as a key player in relationships. And Triennale, I believe, wants to uh, lead to a new turn in the public debate, to lead to a new balance in the relationship between man and nature. The second exhibition project is more related to our city and to the work of the great Enzo Mari, and it marks a unique opportunity for cooperation with Triennale. Just very few months ago, the whole collection and archive of Enzo Mari was acquired by the Milan municipality through a very generous act of donation by his family, which has made it possible for the Milan municipality to make a step forward to the establishment of CASVA, the new center that will be located in the heart of the neighborhood, which characterizes the relationship between nature and the city, namely QT8. This museum will be located at Via Isernia, and the archive of Enzo Mari will be a key element of its development, of its activity and research. This exhibition shows the multifariousness of Enzo Mari and his great rigor and the impressive extension of his work. This is done through the curatorship of Mr. Obrist, who has been very accurate. This exhibition developed during the donation period, and the dialogue with Stefano Boeri proved to us that it was more appropriate for the exhibition to take place here at the Triennale Museum, even though it was supposed to keep its relationship with the Milan municipality. In closing, I would like to pick up on some of the words uttered by Minister Franceschini, because they point to a future recovery of the cultural economy. And namely that all safety measures should be observed by the workers in the cultural sector and the public. And nowadays, cultural venues are the safest ones, which is something that makes us proud, because we want to not only ensure the physical safety of people who enter into a museum or a theater, but also because we play the role of resuming social closeness. At a time of social distancing, we must put a focus on social closeness, and cultural venues play an important role. One of them is Triennale, and it has proved this with its activity in the garden and with the opening of the exhibition today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, we were talking with Hervé Chandé, and we said that the coexistence of these two exhibitions that are so different in terms of language and of the profile of the two artists share actually the fact that they outline two political, human and intellectual trajectories which are extraordinary. Enzo Mari was born in 1932 in Novara, and Claudia was born somewhere else. And this is the history of the entire life of two great European intellectuals who have succeeded in building up an extraordinary pathway where the borders between disciplines become less outlined, and where there is an uncommon ethical engagement. So we are happy to start our activity at a difficult time by thinking of the contribution that these extraordinary figures have gave at a difficult time in the past. In the 1930s, Nazism was beginning to play an important role in Europe. The Spanish War began, racial laws were introduced. It was a terrible moment. I think that this is an important moment for us to confirm that Fondazione Cartier and Triennale have not just an artistic alliance, but also a cultural and ethical commitment in what they are doing. Starting from today, Triennale is open again. The ground floor will be fully devoted to design because the Museum of Design is active, and in a way, the Enzo Maria exhibition is an appendage and a continuation of what of previous exhibitions devoted to the masters of Italian design, such as Sozzas and others. Mari's exhibition, by the way, will be followed by an exhibition on Vico Magistretti. This, however, was also an opportunity to introduce major innovations. We redesigned the education space where playful and learning activities involving children, which is one of the greatest things of about Triennale, will continue. And by the way, I would like to thank Zucchini and European Design for helping us to renovate this space. As for Enzo Mari's exhibition and the exhibition of photos by Claudia Andujar, they will be accompanied by parallel simultaneous events which we are introducing and which we will share with you as we go along through social media and through a series of podcasts which start today involving Hans Ulrich Obrist and others. As Minister Franceschini and the Ambassador of France reminded us, this is a completely new and unique partnership. I have no knowledge of an 8-year-long collaboration between two institutions that come from two different countries and that are two different legal entities. So this is a very topical news. And the more we discuss our perspectives with Fondation Cartier, the more extraordinary ideas arise. Now, I would like to ask the CEO of Cartier International, Cyril Vigneron, to come up to the podium and to share with us how the construction of this extraordinary partnership was pursued and carried out. Thank you. Thank you, Stefano. Thank you, Minister Franceschini, Mr. Ambassador, and ladies and gentlemen.
As Stefano has mentioned, this partnership, something special, never been done before, because there used to be some divide. What has to be public, what has to be private? And private companies have to make business, but not take care about things which are on public domain or two big issues like health, education, culture, security service, many things that have to be, or energy, but handled by public hands. But we have gone beyond that limit because now the world is coming to divide, which is not private to public, but based on values and what we believe in and what we have to grow and to develop. So when we discussed with Stefano, he said, we don't want kind of sponsorship, we just don't want money, even if public now institutions need money and they cannot ask so much for the taxpayers. So it's natural to ask sponsorship for private entities. But he said, I want contribution in kind. And just this notion, contribution in kind, means a lot, because we need also kindness in this world. We need return on kindness more than return on investment. And in kind mean we want to collaborate for 8 years to make exhibition together, either initiated in Paris or done here or done together, and then grow also outside in the world, because there are things we have to show and to share with everyone. So Fondation Cartier pour l'Art Contemporain has been existing for 35 years. At that time when it started, it was not seen so nicely to say, why do private companies come into the world of culture? Will not they corrupt culture and art? But in 35 years, Fondation Cartier pour l'Art Contemporain has shown that it can do something absolutely different from any commercial purpose, and just to be an open window on the world. Open window on artists, whether known or unknown, individual or collective, but also the link between art, mathematics, science, biology, that gives a sensitive view on the world that we see today. So the first exhibition on Yanomami was 20 years ago. A recent one about trees, Nous les arbres, has received a lot of audience, because this notion, how to have a sensitive view on the world, helps us to represent it. So Fondation pour l'Art Contemporain is not only an exhibition center when you put famous artists on the wall. Fondation pour l'Art Contemporain doesn't care about art market, but what does we have to understand about the world, how it is, and artists and designers and architects are those who have the best view on it. So for 35 years, it has grown, and that's why when we discuss, say, that's what we're interested in a city and another city, Paris and Milan, Fondation pour l'Art Contemporain and la Triennale, working on values, on purpose, and what we expect from it. So it's symbolic to say we have to go beyond borders of countries, of nations, of private and public, for going for common purpose and common values. And I think that's why we try to show not only it's possible, but it's necessary, because the world is going to too many divides that we have to close. And now we are facing the same issues. 20 years ago, Claudia Andujar showed that when the open up of the forest by roads then brought a lot of disease, like flu, like malaria, and like rougeole, I don't know if it's measles or I don't mention the name. Anyway, but now with COVID, everyone's impacted. And so it's also a symbolic exhibition to show that art has to come to common issues, and environment and diversity of communities is something we are all impacted with. And so, of course, in our commitment, we cannot just be a witness of what's happening. So with Cartier Philanthropy, we'll also support Yanomamis in their fight against COVID to bring some mobile clinics, and also in their effort to preserve their environment into reforestation. So everything goes together, art and culture, philanthropy, and support the communities. Because now any, I think, responsible company has to act responsibly with the world, first to show, to exhibit, whether in culture or whether in humanity, because it's all our concern. If we want to give back our future to our children, because maybe we borrowed too much to them, and that's why we definitely need to join all forces in this respect. That's what we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyril Vigneron. Her Vision Day, a few months ago, started to build together with me the formal aspects of this partnership and of this agreement. And it has been great fun. It was great fun to start preparing these two exhibitions and discussing many more things with the curatorial teams, because we have had fun discussing the future. Good morning. I am very pleased to be here in Milan today. It is a great honor here to be here to inaugurate this new alliance. Stefano, I heard that we are blessed by God, and this is indeed necessary, but there is a happy coincidence whereby we are inaugurating two exhibitions, Claudia's and Enzo Mari's. Enzo Mari is an extraordinary artist, and therefore the Fondation admires both his work and himself. About a decade ago, I don't remember when exactly, we organized an exhibition and at the center of it was Enzo Mari. So these exhibitions about these two great characters of our time, who, as Stefano said, come from the same generation, even though they've had two different destinies that have, as it were, flown together towards valuing the value of humanity, are moving me. I am moved because Claudia and Dujar's exhibition lies at my heart. Initially, this exhibition was organized by the director of the photography department of Institute Morella Sales at Sao Paulo. The exhibition was then held at Fondation Cartier a few months ago in Paris, and I am very pleased to inaugurate this alliance of ours with an exhibition by a lady, a great lady of both the 20th and the 21st centuries, because this is her history. She was born in Europe. Her mother was a Protestant, and her father was Jewish. And most of her family members were exterminated during Nazism. At the time, she lived in a small community in Transylvania, and when she was a teenager, she left to the United States, started to live in New York, and as a young woman, when she was in her early 20s, she left to Brazil and started to live in Sao Paulo, and she's lived there ever since. So it is really moving for us to inaugurate this cooperation with an exhibition of the works by a woman who is a great artist, a really exceptional photographer, and who has used the camera to communicate with others. And this is a message which, in my view, is key for us and should be truly understood. Claudia has really made an effort to enter into a communication and exchange with Yanomami, who are a people who live in the far north of Brazil. She started to learn about them in 1971, and she has worked and collaborated with the world of Yanomamis ever since. Her pictures testify to this. I am not going to add anything else because Tiago Nogueira will explain this exhibition further to us. So Claudia is a great dame, a great lady, and a great artist. And for the last 50 years, she has engaged for the Yanomamis and embraced their culture and metaphysics. I think this exhibition by Claudia Andujar is clear and embodies our project. A project which is based on various requirements. One of them being introducing artists who are extraordinary and who've had extraordinary lives. Moreover, another requirement is for us is to exhibit works by artists who are immersed in today's world, and the Yanomami culture, the Amazon forest, and this indigenous tribe are part of this. Another value we share is the notion of universalism, communicating with all cultures, encountering all cultures is, I think, the real focus of our mission and of our role, and indeed it is one of our key principles. Let me say once more that this is a great way to start a collaboration between between Fondation Cartier and Triennale of Milan. We really want to introduce a cohabitation between disciplines in our museums involving arts, science, but also other disciplines with a view to working with others according to this spirit, the spirit of working over time for an ongoing period. Working for an ongoing period is key because it enables us not only to enrich ourselves, but also to establish ties based on trust. And this is key with a view to a cultural project, because if there's no trust, it's not possible to have a dialogue with artists or with the public. It is actually a great project, an adventure which starts today and which is only in its infancy. We've already identified our affinities and our differences, and we will discover more. What is for sure is that this alliance between Fondation Cartier, Triennale, Paris and Milan and Paris, within this international context, will help us to devise and to create together projects that will fly beyond European frontiers and borders. I think this is also important because Fondation Cartier and Triennale Milan want to build up projects that will go abroad, and we're working on this. We're working on projects that will be implemented outside of Europe. Let me close by saying that we are inaugurating this exhibition by Claudia Andrejar without her being here. And David Capet Yanomani, the shaman who is the leader of the Yanomani tribe, as well as his son Dario and great characters who have been part of the recent history of this tribe, well, all of them are not here. All these people who have worked to defend the Yanomami people and the forest. I would like to especially mention Carlo Zucchini, an Italian missionary who is was relocated to the Yanomami forest back in 1971. He's a truly extraordinary individual. And Claudia Zacchini and Claudia belong to two different cultures. He was a missionary, whereas she came from Eastern Europe and was very young when she met him, and he was already there. And together they met a French anthropologist, Mr. Pros Albert, and started to cooperate together. And so they worked on the laying out of the borders of the Yanomami territory. Well, these extraordinary people have not been able to join us here today because of the COVID restrictions, and it is truly disappointing to have to inaugurate an exhibition without the artist herself and the people who have played a key role in her activity. And clearly our thoughts go to them because, of course, this exhibition is dedicated and devoted to Claudia and Dujar, but it's also dedicated to this people and their cause. COVID has spread in the Yanomami tribe. There are currently 700 cases in the Amazon forest, and I believe that around 15 people have been killed by the pandemic there. As previously mentioned by the other speakers, and as demonstrated by this exhibition, the diseases and epidemics that started to propagate in the forests back in the 1960s and 70s are now returning with COVID. And Claudia always says that what is happening in the forest is going to happen here too. And this is one of the messages of the exhibition. these diseases used to be in the forest and now they are among us. So it's important to listen to this message. Let me close with one final thought. I would like to share with you that this today is a truly extraordinary project, a project that should enthuse us all, and a unique and uniquely new project which looks to the future. It's a partnership for the future, and I believe that this is what we should do. We should develop this partnership for the future, for young people, for the public, for all the audiences, and we should be as generous and committed as possible.
Grazie Hervé. Tiago Nogueira, che è stato colui che ha progettato e disegnato l'allestimento. Prego Tiago, ci racconta adesso la riscrittura di un'opera straordinaria dentro in spazi così particolari come quelli della Triennale, così diversi da quelli di Fondation Cartier. Tiago.
Buongiorno a tutti. I'm going to speak in English because unfortunately I don't speak Italian. I would like to thank you all for being here, and also thanks Fondation Cartier and Triennale for hosting this show and embracing this project with so much passion. It's very important for us that this project that was conceived in Brazil is now traveling in Europe. You may know that this is a retrospective exhibition. It was planned to talk about the life of this extraordinary woman, which is one of the most important living artists in Brazil, Cláudia Andujar, and also her collaboration with the Yanomami people in Brazil. The Yanomami, as you know, live in the north part of Brazil, and they were very isolated, still very isolated when Cláudia arrived at that land in the 70s. It's really a pity, as Hervé has said, that Cláudia and Davi Kopenawa could not come here because they are the persons that should be speaking for these images and they should be speaking for this show. The whole idea of the show was to give voice to that speech and to the importance of the cause that they represent. The exhibition was based in 4 years of research. I have been working with Cláudia for a long time, looking on her archive, because when I started this project, I really wanted to bring together and put together the two dimensions of her work, the artistic dimension, the representation of the culture and the Yanomami people, but also the political dimension of these photographs and the ethical commitment that they represent. I thought with the years and the passage of time, this political dimension was being forgotten and was being lost because of the fight was being distant in time. As you know, and I think Hervé and also Stefano explained a little bit, Cláudia was born in Europe. She was born in Switzerland and raised in Transylvania in 1931, but she had to fly away and escape during the Nazi persecution. And she arrived in Brazil in 1955, where she became an important photojournalist and also an artist. She always says that she took the camera because she wanted to look at people and be in touch with people and understand people. And throughout this initial phase of her life, she was very much interested in the vulnerability of the human being. I think because of her European history, she was really concerned with the fragility of our human being and was dedicated to photographing people that were marginalized and discriminated by society. And it was only in 1970 that she arrived in the Yanomami land to start her project. She was already 40 years old, and she went there for a trip to do a reportage, and she really found an amazing place and was completely in love, immediately in love with that region, and decided to quit her job as a photojournalist and really dedicate herself to that cause. So for some years, I think Cláudia tried to create, and you will see that in the first part of the show, she's trying to create a representation of that culture. She's trying to replicate the experience of being in the forest, but also trying to teach us and offer us the possibility of seeing a representation of a shamanic culture, to really understanding things that are invisible, that are immaterial, that are abstract, and that didn't have any kind of photographic representation otherwise. So it's a long process of Claudia of learning and also of establishing this new representation in terms of photography. And I think that's her first political accomplishment, really to expand what we can experience and expand through art what we can see and learn about this world. On the second part of the show, you will see a more dramatic moment, which is the fight and the struggle that the Yanomami had to face in Brazil because of the Brazilian dictatorship's ambitious program to develop the Amazon, which they considered an empty green continent. In the mid-1970s, the Brazilian dictatorship launched this program, and they decided to build a complex road network of roads. They decided to bring companies. They brought massive workers to the region, and this was tragic. It was in the moment that Claudia was in the height of her experimentation and really very much at ease with the Yanomami, and the shock and the contact with our culture and our civilization, the economic force of that civilization was really created a massacre among the Yanomami. Claudia was expelled from the land in this period because she started to denounce the atrocities, the violence, and she had to stay for 1 year in São Paulo, really trying to go back and to get authorization to go back. That authorization was only conceived because of the help of Pietro Maria Bargi, which is an Italian that moved to Brazil and that was directing a very important museum in Brazil. So on the second part of the show, we tell the story of the struggle that was part of the Yanomami, that really massacred the Yanomami, and that made Claudia really move away from her artistic practice, because I think she really realized that, this exploration, this aesthetic experience, and her own artistic practice would not save those people. She really needed to work in direct politics and also in activism to try to do something to prevent what was going on. So she joined a collaborative fight with Bruce Albert, the French anthropologist, with Carlo Zucchini, the Italian missionary, and more importantly, with Davico Penawa, the main spokesperson for the Yanomami, to create an NGO and to press for the demarcation of the Yanomami land and for the protection of those rights. And this demarcation was only established in 1992, after 14 years of a very, very hard battle and a very difficult moment for all of them. And it was considered a victory, an unprecedented victory, because they really had their land protected, a very big piece of land, and in a continuous demarcation. And this was the project of these very obstinate and very tenacious people that really dedicated herself. You might know that Claudia was not even considered, when in this period, she was regarded as an anthropologist, not as an artist. No one knew she was a photographer anymore. And she was only using photography eventually just to instrumentalize her political action. You will see on the second part of the show, the images they have a very different nature. They are mostly images for denouncement and images for the medical registration cards that she took of the Yanomami. So when we opened this show in Brazil, the idea was really to homage Claudia and the people, the Yanomami people, and to tell about this story that was being forgotten by the newer generations. We could not even think that Jair Bolsonaro was going to be elected in the same year that we opened the exhibition. And the same kind of violence, the same kind of stupidity, the same kind of discourse was going to be repeated and was going to be brought back to the front because of his election. And what was supposed to be a historical show and a homage to these people became also a very urgent appeal to try to stop that violence again, to try to stop history to repeat itself in Brazil. Bolsonaro is now saying that he wants to challenge the demarcation of the Yanomami land, that there is a lot of minerals that he wants to explore on that land, that he will not give any centimeters of land for indigenous people in Brazil, that the demarcations are a product of the pressure of international community against the agribusiness in Brazil. So all this ignorance is now back in Brazil, and we really need to understand that this exhibition now has another and an urgent message, which is not just to tell a historic story, but really to make people aware of what's going on and make people help us and press Brazil to defend these indigenous people that are now suffering today. because of the neglect of Brazilian government, we have now 20,000 miners in the Yanomami land that brought again mercury, poisoning all the rivers, that have brought again many other diseases, but also COVID. There are 1,000 cases of COVID now confirmed in the Yanomami land. They have a very poor health system. So we really need international pressure and the conscience of the visitors to understand what's going on and to really help us fight that fight. The last thing I wanted to say is just that there is a big discussion in Europe about environmental issues and climate change. And I think we are missing one important point that I hope the exhibition helps to clarify, which is the environmental issue is a humanitarian issue. It's about defending people, not only defending trees. If we don't defend the people that live on those lands, Amazon is not a wild piece of land. It's not empty. It's full of indigenous people. It's full of other communities that have been defending and have been living there in a very sustainable way. So if we really don't defend those people, if we really don't protect the people that know how to take care of the environment, that have the most advanced knowledge, the most advanced technologies to teach us how to preserve this environment and to live with the environment sustainably, we will not protect the environment. There is no point in protecting the trees alone. It's really important that we understand that the environmental question needs to be seen as a humanitarian question, and I think the Yanomami have a lot to teach us on that reason. As David Kopenawa says many times, very clearly, he says, I am the environment. So we really need to understand that very profoundly. And also, I think we also need to learn with Claudia and her ability to put herself in the place of the others, to try to reach out to the others, if we really want to understand and live together in this planet. This exhibition, as I explained, it has a very important ethical commitment to it. The Yanomami, they didn't really like photography. They didn't like to be represented. And whenever a person dies in the Yanomami community, you have to destroy everything that represents that person. You have to burn its hammock, you have to raise its footsteps, you have really to destroy this person from earth to stop the suffering and to let the body of the person to ascend, the soul of the person to ascend to the back of the sky. And so I think the only reason for this exhibition to exist right now and to be circulating it is because on the exhibition there's an ethical commitment that is, we can look at this picture if we understand that the meaning of this picture is not only to please the eyes, but it's really to learn about the others and help defend what we see. And I think that's a very important ethical commitment that we need to maintain for the exhibition, and it's a very important message that we need to understand when we work with art. So I'd like to thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the exhibition.
A very important exhibition. It is certainly the biggest retrospective of Insomari's work, and we were welcomed on the ground floor at Triennale by an extraordinary work of art, which is important for you to note because it accounts for the incredible quality of the relationships that Insomari has built throughout his life. The work of art is Nanda Vigo's work, possibly the last one, and it's dedicated to Insomari. When me and Enzo Baroncelli welcomed Nanda and asked her for a contribution, she said she wanted to focus on the animals, on the zoo, and we hope that it will remain as the extraordinary heritage of an extraordinary artist who came into contact with the work of another extraordinary artist. We have been thinking for a long time about the best way to exhibit in Somari. He comes from a very vast universe in terms of his cultural product and in terms of materials and shapes. I have to say that I was very firm in thinking that the choice regarding who could represent the curatorship for such an important exhibition should be Hans-Ulrich Obrist. Mr. Obrist has been an ongoing sparring partner of INSO. They have discussed issues regarding art for many years, and they have discussed the changes of the Italian and European context. Moreover, Mr. Obrist is a collector of Insomari's viewpoints and works. And this is, I believe, the added value that Obrist has brought to Insomari's exhibition. He has brought diverse standpoints by adding extraordinary artists who, as you will see, accompany with very topical comments Insomari's work. Hans is with us, I think. Hans, are you there? Hans Ulrich?
See me? Stefano? Ciao Stefano, ciao.
Hi, Hans. Hi, Stefano. If you want, we can speak Italian together. I think it's important for you, Hans Ulrich Obrist, to share with us your experience, which is the continuation of a dialogue which started 20 years ago and which has resulted into an exhibition which sums up the complex relationship between you and Insomari. Also thanks to the extraordinary contribution by Francesca Giacomelli, who will take the floor in a few minutes and who has been following Insomari's work for a long time. Hans Ulrich Obrist, the floor to you. Thank you all, and thank you to the ambassador, the secretary, and the councillor. My greatest thanks go to Insomari, a friend of 20 years. Our friendship lies at the heart of the exhibition. I'd also like to thank Enzo Baroncelli, Francesca Giacomelli, who will speak later about her extraordinary collaboration with Enzo. I would also like to thank Manuel Krebs, Bruno, and the Triennale of Milan. And in French, I would like to thank you for the cooperation. And Fondation Cartier, because indeed I started off with an exhibition in 1991. And it all started thanks to Fondation Cartier, who invited me 20 years ago to work with them. There I had the opportunity to meet Hervé Chandet, and it's extraordinary that today this wonderful alliance between Fondation Cartier and Cartier and Triennale Milano has been created. And now back to Italian. So this exhibition is very much related to the dialogue between me and Insomari, because we met in the 1990s and we organized a seminar on architecture in Venice, me and Stefano, where we invited Insomari. At the time, Stefano frequently organized exhibitions with Vico Magistretti, Alessandro Menini, Ettore Sozzas, Gini Boeri, Nanda Vigo, and others, including Insomari. So this is how me and Insomari first met. And I started off meeting him and visiting him. And the great thing is that at every visit and at every meeting, I discovered new things. Mari has various dimensions: industrial design. He's the inventor of exhibitions. He's an artist. He is a polemist. He has written manifestos. There are many dimensions to him. One could say that in a way Insomari is a Leonardo of our time. He's also a designer of books, of new types of books and new processes. The project in Mari's heart is the idea that for us, design is not a matter of trade, industry, brands, and advertising. To him, the issue is always how design can communicate knowledge. Or, as what he once said, the idea of accounting for what is told by a product and allowing for a product that does not come from alienating work, leading to a different society. This is what has been most important for me over the years is this, and he wrote a manifesto regarding this, do it yourself. So we organized an exhibition with Christian Bodansky, which has toured in 165 cities in the world. This exhibition was very much influenced by the self-design devised by Enzo Mari, which is the way through which he communicates his idea of knowledge. Another aspect that makes Enzo Mari important today is the notion of sustainability. We spoke with Forma Fantasma recently in London, and they told me that for their generations, Mr. Mari was key because he made projects and projects that were made to last. And as one Mario Merckx said once, long-lastingness is difficult. So the idea that Enzo Mari's projects are long-lasting and are sustainable throughout generations and are never disposed of lies truly at the heart of sustainable design. Obviously, as Stefano says, it's a great challenge to communicate all these dimensions in an exhibition. So we decided to divide it into 4 chapters. There's a historical chapter which focuses on the exhibition The Art of Design that was held in Turin years ago. Enzo Mari curated that exhibition in close collaboration with Francesca Giacomelli. So theirs is not just the first collaboration. That exhibition was the first retrospective of his design works, and we chose it as our starting point. Enzo Mari has created more than 2,000 works, and we chose 150 of them. We then added a second chapter, the so-called research platforms, because as Stefano said, the notion of research is key to Mari. And we wanted to show the idea that visitors can experience and experiment with this fact that design can produce knowledge. And this is to be seen through all the documents that are related to the 2011 Voodoo exhibition held at Fondation Cartier. My aim was to reconstruct one of the exhibition layouts created by Enzo. The 4th chapter comprises homages by artists. We invited a group of artists to create workshops for children, which are related to all the works created by Enzo for children. There's also an important number of artists who have written letters about the importance that Enzo Mari has played for their generation of artists. We then have Danvo, Nositano, and another artists who provide 3 answers regarding the self-design concept of Enzo Mari. All this is followed by Nanda Vigo, whom I'd like to remember her. Her latest work was called Enzo's Zoo. It is a yet unpublished work which was devised for the exhibition before she died. She reinterpreted the most famous works by Mari through light, the works being Sedici Animali and Sedici Pesci. So this is where their encounter took place. We then have Andrea Pacci, and his conversations with Mari led us to a question which resulted in a space containing all the interviews we've made about Mari and that have been made available. Salomon, the legendary inventor of supergraphics, has created a work with Enzo's name. It's also important to note that we have a tie with the practice of Enzo Mari, because it was fundamental for us to show where Enzo Mari worked. So we asked Mimo Jodice to photograph his workshop, and this can give us an insight into how Enzo works. We've also included podcasts which, as it were, accompany the show. So thank you to you all, and thank you for being with us. Thank you, Hans. I hope to see you soon. And now I leave the floor to Francesca Giacomelli. Francesca Giacomelli was involved in the 2008 exhibition and has played a very important role in the recreation of this space here. By the way, I'd like to also thank Paolo Ulian, who has designed the layout of the exhibition. Francesca, the floor to you.
Buongiorno e grazie a tutti i presenti. Sono profondamente dispiaciuta di non poter essere lì con voi.
Good morning, and thank you to all those present. I am very
Desidero
sorry not
ringraziare in
to be
maniera
here with
speciale Lea
you.
Vergine, Enzo
I
Mari,
would like
Hans Ulrich
to
Obrist,
thank
il
Lea
presidente
Vergine,
Stefano
Hans
Boeri,
Ulrich Obrist,
il direttore
Enzo Mari,
artistico
the
Lorenzo
chairman
Baroncelli
Enzo
e Paolo Ulian,
Boeri,
senza i quali la
Lorenzo Baroncelli
realizzazione
and
di questo
Paolo Ulian,
progetto non
without
sarebbe
whom
stata
the
possibile.
realization of this
Ringrazio
project
altresì
would not
Triennale,
have
in
been
particolare Maria
possible.
Pederbelli
I would
per la
also like
preziosa
to thank
collaborazione.
Triennale
La mostra
and Marina
triennale segna il
Pederbelli
passaggio
for their
dell'archivio di Enzo Mari al
cooperation.
Comune di Milano.
The
Mari ha deciso di
exhibition
donare il suo
marks the
archivio
passage
perché
of
diventi
Enzo
patrimonio
Mari's
pubblico.
archive to the
L'opera
Milan
totale,
municipality.
l'essenza della sua
Enzo
ricerca,
Mari
forse
has
l'eccesso della
decided to
sua
donate his
ricerca, sarà
archive,
accolto e conservato dal CASMA,
which
Centro
is
di
the
Alti
essence
Studi sulle
of
Arti
his
Visive.
research,
Nel definire l'ordinamento di questo
which will
progetto
be
espositivo ci siamo
preserved at
chiesti
CASB,
come
the new
trasformare il
museum.
ricordo in
We
memoria viva,
wondered how
traducendo
we
l'immobilità
could
fisica di ciò che
turn
ora giace in
memories
archivio avvolto
into
dalla polvere in una
living
piattaforma di ricerca
memory and
generatrice di idee.
into a research
Mario è un
platform
costruttore di
that would generate
grammatiche, un
ideas.
inventore di
Mario
linguaggi.
is a builder
La chiave
of
politica
grammars,
della
an
politica
inventor of
eversiva di Mari è
languages.
una ricerca
The
interamente
key
proiettata verso la
of Mari's
socializzazione del
research
progetto.
is
Non può
one
realizzarsi se non
that
attraverso
is
la
aimed at the
partecipazione di tutti.
socialization of projects.
Attraverso la tensione
These projects
utopizzante di
cannot
socializzazione del
take
progetto,
place
Mari pensa all'ideale di
without
trasformazione
others.
dell'uomo.
So this
Lo vuole
represents
liberare,
the
lo vuole
ideal
coinvolgere
of
come
the
alleato, perché
transformation
per
of
lui il
man.
progetto, la
Man should
creatività
be
sono atti di
released and
guerra.
involved as an
Liberarlo
ally
dal
because
bieco ruolo di
Mari's acts
consumatore
are
passivo
acts
del
of war.
progetto, perché il progetto non è una
And
forma da
projects are
contemplare o da
not a
consumare,
form or a
ma uno
shape to
strumento
be
di trasformazione
contemplated,
che
to be
necessita
admired,
della
and to be
partecipazione attiva di
consumed,
una
but it is
collettività
something
resa
that
consapevole
requires the
della
active
coscienza.
participation of a community which is made aware of knowledge. Thank you very much, Francesca. I hope Francesca will join us soon. I think it will be surprising to discover the ties and similarities between these two exhibitions. The wood of forests is an element which is prominent in Claudia Andujari's exhibition, and it's also present in Enzo Mari's work, for example. I would like to thank, first of all, Cyril Vigneron and Hervé Chandez for supporting this partnership and for following up on everything with wonderful projects. In 2022, Unknown Unknowns will be the new Triennale. And this will be introduced in early December when the names of the designers and curators will be appointed. I would also like to thank Acquaroni from Fondation Cartier, who's been with us and hopefully will be with us over the next few months and years. I'd also like to thank Lefebvre, who is the artistic director of Fondation Cartier, and the art and cultural director of Cartier Italia, Tiziana Manervini. But all this could not have been done without the huge ability to organize Triennale's activity by the Triennale team, starting with Claudia Morogallo, who is here with us, Lorenza Baroncelli, and the scientific committee, and the entire Triennale and Fondation Cartier team. Moreover, I'd like to thank Hans Ulrich Obrist, Francesca Giacobelli, and Lea Vergine. Lea Vergine has been a silent but important present, as well as Tiago Nogueira and Enzo Mari. There are sponsors who, as you know, support our work. There are also institutional partners such as Eni and Lavazza. ATM is the technical partner, and Channel also provide sponsorship. With the COVID-related limitations, it is possible from now on to visit the shows, so thank you very much for attending. Good morning. Please pay attention. I would like you to leave the room in due order from the first to the last row.